Hey guys. This is an Overlord and Naruto crossover. It's pretty short but still good. This is what if Naruto was the heir of Nazarick. Curiosity may have killed the cat, but it entrapped the Overlord. Pondering his mortality, Ainz decides to make the Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki, the heir of Nazarick. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. This part will cover chapters 1 to 3. Let's start. Chapter 1. Ainz's old gown cursed his own curiosity as he stared at the seal matrix that kept him confined within the bars that was now his prison, which unfortunately for him, looked like it was located in a sewer of some sort. The elder lich just had to be drawn to the commotion outside of the great tomb of Nazarick, which was now situated deep within a massive forest, which was ironically located in the center of the massive village known as Konoha. His only company being that of the giant fox-like creature that had been attacking the village only moments ago, which was now curled up in the far corner of their cell, drained of its power temporarily as a result of the sealing. Bemoaning the fact that he had arrogantly refused the aid of his loyal servants that had shown great desire in accompanying him, and had even left his treasured staff within the tomb, feeling he didn't need it. With great hubris, he had thought himself untouchable. However, he had learned that the power of a literal god could very well touch him. A lesson he had learned at a great price. Though, it was probably for the best. If any had joined him on his outing, they too would have been sealed within the boy. Letting out a small sigh, the lich continued studying the sealing array. While he was no master in the strange art of seals this world had, he was knowledgeable enough to understand it. Having spent the last few years looking in on the inhabitants of the village the forest his home resided in. Namely, the village's leader and his wife, combined with his own existing knowledge with the use of magic circles. Ironic that he would also view their last moments on the mortal plane, before finding himself sealed within their own child. From what he could decipher from the sealing array, he knew there was little chance of escape. At least not anytime soon. Furthermore, it appeared as if the seal was designed to siphon the chakra from the beast behind him, as well as his own power, since he too was now a prisoner within the child. As such, at the rate his power was being drained from him, he calculated that he had 9 to 10 years before he was completely drained, and then, well, it wasn't something the lich really wanted to think about right now. So, that is how it is then, he surmised with a sigh, turning away from the bars. Ironic that my own pride would be my downfall. Growing curious as to what was going on in the outside world, the skeletal mage waved his bony fingers in the air before him, summoning a large flat circle to appear before him. Focusing his magic, he viewed what appeared to be a large room filled with various individuals. On one side, Ainz recognized the heads of the various clans that called the village home. Opposite of the clan heads were a bunch of pathetic and weak-looking individuals, which the Overlord of Nazarick had identified as the civilian council of the village. A bunch of ignorant fools that were only concerned with stuffing their own pockets. Lastly, an elderly-looking man of below-average height with a gaunt face stood at the end of the large U-shaped table, flanked by 3 similarly elder-looking individuals, 2 male and 1 female. Still dressed in his dark gray shinobi battle armor. His helmet sitting on the table, exposing his receding gray hairline and a similar gray goatee adorning his chin. Various wrinkles marring his aged face with some liver spots, showing the years he has seen throughout his life. In his arms, a blond baby boy that was soundly asleep, despite the ruckus exploding around him. Council room. A multitude of voices echoed within the room as nearly the entire council on both sides attempted to talk over one another. Emotion still high from the QB attack that had transpired not even 2 hours ago. While the council members argued amongst one another, Hiruzen, with a heavy heart, pondered what to do. He knew he would have to reveal the deaths of both Minato and Kushina, as much as it pained him to do so. Though his biggest dilemma was how to approach the little boy he now held in his arms. The son of both Minato and Kushina, and the new Jinchuriki of the QB. In his dying breath, Minato had told the elder man that the villagers would see his son as a great hero for holding the QB's wrath at bay. However, Hiruzen didn't share his predecessor's optimism. While he believed in the will of fire within the village, he also wasn't so blinded by it that he believed the populace would ignore the deaths of loved ones, knowing all too well how pain and grief can cloud one's visions. Not to mention, revealing the boy's burden also contradicted Minato's own instructions of not revealing his parentage until it was determined the boy was ready and capable of defending himself, due to both of his parents' numerous enemies. This also meant that he couldn't even reveal the boy's heritage to the council either. Meaning, as far as anyone else was concerned, young Naruto would simply be an orphan from this evening's attack, as much as it broke his aging heart to do so. Letting out a sigh, he turned to his former rival and gave a subtle nod, as the bandaged elder strikes the floor 3 times with his cane, catching all the occupants' attention as they began to quiet down and settle into their seats, looking to the 4 elders at the end of the table expectantly. It is with a heavy heart that I inform you of the passing of both Minato Namikaze and his wife Kushina Uzumaki. As such, I reluctantly take up the mantle once more as Hokage, he announced in a somber tone, earning a series of gasps from various members of the council, namely the shinobi side that had greatly respected the two. Numerous members of the civilian council silently cheered for the passing of the yondaime, as the man was becoming a thorn in their side in the ways they had conducted their business, shrinking the power they had claimed as their own during the Sandaime's time. While some of the more vain female members of the civilian council felt a perverse sense of justice that the red-haired whore had finally gotten what she deserved for stealing Minato away from them. Kushina died due to injuries she sustained while battling the Kyuubi no Yoko. Hiruzen explained, merging fact with fiction, knowing it would be folly to reveal that the late Uzumaki woman was the previous container of the giant fox. While Minato sacrificed himself to defend his village and his home, exemplifying what it means to carry the will of fire. And what of the Kyuubi? The mummified elder man inquired, his lone eye lingering on the sleeping infant in the former Hokage's arms. How was the yondaime able to defeat the demon? Hiruzen mentally cursed Danzo as he looked around the room, seeing that the old war hawk's words had caught everyone's curiosity, forcing the recently reinstated village leader to reveal the infant's burden to these fools, prompting him to narrow his aging eyes at the bandaged warhawk. What are you planning, Danzo? He mentally pondered, before he let out a tired sigh as he braced himself for what he was about to do. He could only hope Minato, Kushina, and even young Naruto would forgive him someday. With no other option available, Minato was forced to seal the Kyuubi into an infant child, born this night. The third Hokage informed the council members with great reluctance. He had vainly hoped that he could keep the child's burden a secret from all, but Danzo had forced this revelation. This is Naruto Uzumaki, chosen by Minato himself to keep the Kyuubi at bay with a burden the boy never asked for. As the elder man had expected, the room erupted into pandemonium as members of the civilian council began to demand that the child be killed, to finish what the yondaime had started. On the other side of the table, many of the clan heads kept silent as they contemplated the revelation they had been given, with the exception of one particular clan head who now narrowed her eyes dangerously at the Sandaime Hokage. We should kill the demon child now while it is weak, a far councilman from the civilian side shouted, earning a series of agreements from his fellow council members, some of which even began to detail gruesome ways they could perform the child's execution, much to the disgust of the various clan heads. Especially Tsuminazuka, whom was a fierce mother first and clan head second. Enough! We will not execute an innocent child, Hiruzen called out, leaking out a considerable amount of killer intent, causing the entirety of the civilian council to sink into their seats while shivering in fear at the potent amount of bloodlust emitting from the reinstated village leader. And I hereby decree right now, the aging village leader continued, emitting even more killer intent than previously, causing even some of the more battle-hardened shinobi in the room to sweat under its pressure, that any who speak openly of Naruto's burden shall immediately forfeit their lives, henceforth. You can't do that, another member of the civilian side exclaimed. We of the council do not approve of such a needless law. You forget, councilman, I am the Hokage of this village. Hiruzen rounded on the ignorant fool, focusing his killer intent on the man. Know this, Councilman Sato, this is my village, and you are merely an advisor to me, nothing more. The now identified Sato dropped into his chair, gasping for air as he felt the full effects of the aging shinobi's killer intent focused on him. Either due to fear or intelligence, the man wisely kept his mouth shut. "What shall we do with the boy then?" inquired Hayashi in a stoic manner. "You should give the Jinchuriki to me, Hiruzen," Danzo calmly stated before Hiruzen could reply to the Hyuga clan head, displaying little emotion in his voice. "I shall see to it personally that it receives the proper training and conditioning for the great good of Konoha." "You mean so you can strip him of his emotions and turn him into a weapon loyal only to you, Danzo?" The Sandame accused his rival with narrowed eyes, prompting the war hawk to grip his cane in irritation. Hiruzen was well aware of the fact that Danzo had ran a Black Ops A&B unit known as Root that was used for more darker missions not for the faint of heart that were not on the official books. While officially, Root was allegedly disbanded under Minato's orders, Hiruzen wasn't entirely convinced that Danzo had completely did so. Mainly because the old war hawk had complied with the order far too easily when the Yondaime had issued it. "The Inuzuka clan will take the pup and raise it as our own," came the voice of Tsum Inuzuka. "Absolutely not!" exclaimed Fugaku, the clan head of the Uchiha clan. "The Uchiha clan will not stand idle and allow your clan of flea-ridden mutts to raise that thing. I for one agree with the civilian council, the child must be neutralized before it becomes a threat." Hearing this, Sim along with her canine partner growled at the Uchiha member in a threatening manner whilst the various councilmen on the civilian side celebrated the fact that an influential member of the Shinobi Council had taken their side and had given weight to their words. Though they were quickly silenced by another dosage of killer intent. "So what do you plan to do with the child, Hokage-sama?" inquired Hayashi, head of the Hyuga clan. For the most part, the man was impartial to the child's burden as he had enough to contend with at home, with his wife being 8 months pregnant with their first child. As such, his clan elders were already making plans for his heir, much to Hayashi's displeasure. Hiruzen frowned slightly. He desperately wanted to allow Tsum to raise the young boy, knowing that under the Inuzuka's banner, young Naruto would be well taken care of. However, Fugaku had already made it clear that the Uchiha clan would not allow it, and since their clan made up the entirety of the Konoha police force, it would spell non-stop trouble for him. While it was not openly stated, it was a position Fugaku could exploit if pushed. The last thing the elder village leader needed was a civil war breaking out within the village because of a single clan throwing a hissy fit. Young Naruto will be placed in an orphanage along with the other orphans from tonight, the Sandame stated with a sigh, remembering all the lives lost this evening, before turning his attention back to the council members once more, hardening his gaze. "And I remind you all, any mention of Naruto's burden is punishable by death, regardless of station. This meeting is hereby adjourned." Slowly, one by one the council members departed the room. Some of the civilian council were shooting the reinstated Hokage a dirty glare for his decision to defend the demon child, while others were beginning to scheme various ways to circumvent the decree the Sandame had just instated. Until only Hiruzen, Tsum, and her partner remained in the room. Slowly getting up from her seat, Tsum slowly stalked towards the elder village leader, Kuramori just behind her. Her sharp and feral eyes locked in on the infant surprisingly still asleep in the elder man's arms. "Something I can help you with, Tsum-san?" Hiruzen inquired as he sat down in his chair for the first time this evening, allowing the strain and weight of the evening's events to fall off his shoulders. "That's Kushina's pup, isn't it?" It was more of a statement than a question. "I can smell her on him, as well as Minato's scent." I cannot say," the elder man fumblingly replied, avoiding the feral woman's eyes. Even though he knew the Inuzuka woman didn't believe him. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why are you keeping his heritage a secret?" Sim inquired, earning a tired sigh from the elder man. "You know better than anyone else how many enemies both Minato and Kushina have made during the Third Great Shinobi War," Hiruzen explained. "Besides, Minato gave explicit instructions that Naruto-kun's heritage should remain hidden until certain conditions are met. Upon becoming a Chunin, he will be informed that Kushina is his mother, and given his inheritance from her. When the boy either turns 18, or becomes Jonin, his father will be revealed to him, along with his inheritance for the boy." Then why won't you let me adopt him? The pharaoh woman asked. You know how close Kushina and I were. Because as heartless as it sounds, I cannot risk the village falling into a civil war over a child. The Sandaime stated in a somber tone. You saw how Fugaku reacted when you first offered, and with the Uchiha clan serving as the backbone of the village's police force, it puts the village as a whole in a very delicate position. Silence hung between the two for a few seconds as Naruto stirred slightly in his sleep. Some could see where the elder village leader was coming from, having to think of the village as a whole instead of just the desires of a few. I can't allow you to adopt him, as much as I want to, Hiruzen said, looking to the pharaoh woman. But at the same time, I can't stop you from looking out for him either. Catching the elder man's implications, Sim grinned a little before looking down at the sleeping infant. Can I hold him? Smiling, Hiruzen gently placed the slumbering infant into the pharaoh woman's arms. A feeling of relief upon knowing that someone close to the boy's parents would truly care about the boy's welfare. The old war veteran was no fool. He knew that some way or another, the council would leak the boy's status. Either through circumventing his law, or by using a sacrificial pawn. The only thing he could do was prepare for the inevitable and do his best to look out for the boy. Mindscape. For the first time in a long time, the elder lich felt disgusted. While the Overlord would probably bear his sins before all to see, the one thing he could honestly claim is that he had never targeted a child, let alone an infant only hours old. Unlike the despicable sacks of filth that made up the civilian council, whom seemed to take great pleasure in detailing the various ways they could end the infant boy's existence. Then there was the Uchiha clan head. From his time observing both Minato and Kushina, the lich had gained an immediate dislike for the man. His desire to take the mantle of Hokage from Minato, preferably from the Yandaime's corpse, before claiming Kushina as his own was clear from the start. Even now, Ainz could see the hatred that still churned within Fugaku. Turning his attention back to the scene before him, he watched as the Inuzuka woman cradled the boy he was now sealed within. A look of adornment prominent on her face as she held the boy, prompting Ainz to feel a sense of appreciation for the woman. He knew very well that the pharaoh woman held an almost sister-like relationship with the boy's mother. There were only two other women in the village that could rival the Inuzuka woman's friendship with the Uzumaki woman, and that was one Mikoto Uchiha and Yugao Yuzuki. Kushina's best friend, with the latter being the woman's former Kenjutsu apprentice. Ainz-sama. A voice sounded in the lich's mind, a voice the Overlord knew quite well. Is everything all right? You've been gone for hours. Everything is fine, Seabass, Ainz replied after a few seconds of silence, surprised that his communication with Nazarick was still open, though he could feel its magic weakening ever so slightly. Weighing his options as he continued to watch Sam cradle his container. If he told them that he had gotten himself sealed inside a child, he knew his servants in Nazarick would raise what was left of the village and potentially kill the child in order to free him from his binds. Both Albedo and Shaltir surely would without any hesitation. I see, came the reply of the head butler of Nazarick. Will you be returning soon then? No, the Overlord responded as he turned his attention to the ceiling array on the bars. Inform the floor guardians that I will be absent for the next few years. Ainz-sama? Seabass questioned, clearly confused. Something has come up that requires my full attention. Ainz replied, though in a sense it was not a lie. I entrust Nazarick to you. Very well, Ainz-sama. It will be done. With that, Ainz cut the communication, letting out a sigh as he did so. He trusted Seabass to carry out his final orders to perfection. He always has. You didn't tell them the truth. A deep voice rumbled from behind the lich, prompting the skeletal being to turn towards his cellmate. The only thing that would have accomplished would be getting the rest of this village destroyed along with the child we are sealed within. Ainz commented. So the kid dies, so what? The fox commented apathetically. With his death, we gain our freedom and this village will be nothing more than a scorch in the history books. So you think? So will my Pleiades think. The Overlord stated before gesturing to the seal that confined them. But the way that works, aside from the boy drawing on our power, it also binds our souls to his. Meaning if he dies, we die. And if one of us were to die in here? the fox inquired in a threatening manner as it stood to its full height. Then our power surges through the child. Ainz answered, unfazed by the fox's intimidating size. And should that kill the boy, then we die anyways. Hearing this, the QB merely scoffed before laying back down in its selected corner, curling up into a ball, using its tails to cover its face. Regardless of your bluster, I know you do not wish death upon the child. The lich continued, calling the fox out on its bluff. You owe too much to Kushina to allow that to happen. Either way, the boy will need us, both of us, as he grows older. Unknown to Ainz, a lone tear rolled down the giant fox's cheeks as it silently mourned the passing of its best friend, by its own hand. On the other side of the cell, the elder lich pondered what to do in the coming years. 8 years later. It had been 8 years since that fateful night, and as Hiruzen had expected, someone had leaked Naruto's status as being the Jinchuriki of the QB almost immediately after the council meeting that night. Councilman Sato had been the sacrificial piece the various other council members had used and manipulated into revealing the boy's status amongst the shinobi forces within the village, and true to his word, the Sandaime had the man executed in front of the entire council. Once again reiterating that such actions will result in their execution, before reluctantly adding that the offending party's entire family would suffer the consequences as well. A move that even Hiruzen's former teammates were thrown off by. With that action alone, the elder village leader was able to ward off any future slip-ups of young Naruto's status, at least for the time being, though he knew the damage had already been done. Parents were already keeping the children away from the blonde boy, and some of the more ignorant civilians would form mobs on the boy's birthday to hunt him down in what they loved to call a fox hunt, which had put the Sandaime in a precarious position. He couldn't execute all involved, otherwise it would cripple the village's economy with the sheer amount of fools involved with each year's fox hunt. So, he had settled for a personal compromise by executing the ringleaders of the mobs in front of all involved, before heavily fining those remaining and sentencing them for an extended time within the village's prison. Fortunately, this seemed to help as over the last few years, the amount of people involved with these so-called fox hunts had reduced sharply, not to mention the fines levied against the other participants had created a massive financial cushion for the boy, ensuring that young Naruto would not have to worry about money for years to come. Though, did that really make up for the years of abuse the poor child already had to endure? Letting out a sigh, the elder village leader pushed himself up off his chair and stretched his back, having enough of the endless amount of paperwork that piled up on his desk. Moving away from his desk, Hiruzen peered out the window that overlooked the village as the sun began to set below the horizon. It's that day again, he thought grimly. A day that should bring a child cheer and joy, only brings Naruto-kun fear and pain. With another sigh, Hiruzen moved over to a pedestal that held a lone crystal sphere and channeled his chakra into the ball, focusing his mind on the lone individual he wished to check in on. Though as the image became clear, the elder man's heart sank once more as he watched a mob of civilians chase the 8-year-old boy through the streets. "Nico!" he called out. Immediately a cat-masked Ainz with purple hair appeared behind him in a kneeling position. "Secure young Naruto-kun and dispose of the mob as you see fit." "Understood, Hokage-sama," Nico stated before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Once the purple-haired Ainz departed, Hiruzen couldn't help but to feel a great swell of pity for the fools once she got there. The elder man knew how protective she was over the child, which was exactly as to why he had sent her. As it was, Nico was one of 3 of his Ainz he could reliably assign to watch over the boy without worry. The other 2 being Inu and Weasel, both of which were indisposed of at the moment, leaving only Nico. Later, Mindscape. Naruto groaned as consciousness slowly came back to him. Looking up as he regained his bearings, he realized he was in a sewer of sorts, filled with water about 4 to 5 inches deep. Letting out a sigh, the young boy pushed himself up out of the water and stood up, taking a moment to take in his surroundings. Noticing various pipes running along the walls, most of which were a dull gray color, though 2 stood out the most. A purplish/blue colored pipe and a fiery red colored pipe. "Great, not only do they beat me up, now they are throwing me into sewers," the boy grumbled as he began to look for a way out. "Come forward, boy," a voice echoed off the walls, startling the poor blonde. What dash? All paths lead to here, child, came another voice. With no other option, Naruto began to follow the voice's instruction. Choosing a pathway, he followed it until he found himself in a massive room with a massive gate sealing off half of the room. Upon the bars, a large piece of paper with the kanji 4 seals shone prominently on display. What is this place? Naruto asked out loud to himself. This is your mind, child, came his answer from behind the bars. Turning to the voice, the blonde let out a yelp in fright as he saw the skeletal form of Ainz standing behind the bars. Who are you and what do you want? Naruto shakily demanded, earning a small chuckle from the lich. I am Ainz Ulgaun, soon to be former overlord of the great tomb of Nazarick. The elder lich introduced himself. Nazerick, I know that name. The blonde mused, his eyes becoming unfocused for a moment, as his mind seemed to recall memories that were not his own. Albedo, Entoma, Lupasurgina, Narbarol, Shaltir, Shizu, Solution, and Yuri. I know their names and their faces, but I don't recall meeting them. That's because you are viewing my memories, child. Ainz chuckled, as the boy's reaction had just proven another theory he had about the seal that kept him and the fox confined. It seems the seal that keeps my cellmate and myself confined is not only siphoning our power, but also our memories. Or mine at the very least. Wait, what do you mean your cellmate? The blonde inquired, picking up on the fact that the skeletal person before him made it know that he was not alone in his prison. Stop hiding back there for ball, and get up here, Ainz commented, looking over his shoulder into seemingly a random corner of the cell. After a few seconds, movement could be heard in the darkness before a massive silhouette came into view, causing Naruto to stumble back before falling on his ass, splashing the water around. Before the boy stood the massive form of the fox that terrorized the village only 8 years ago. You're the... I am the Kyuubi no Yoko. The fox boomed, before the giant beast hung its head in shame. And I am the reason you are hated, Kit. So, the Yondaime didn't kill you like we were taught. Naruto mumbled slightly as his mind was reeling from this sudden revelation. Instead, It is impossible to kill a Biju, Kit. The fox explained in a saddened tone. At best, one can only hope to restrain us. But why me? The blonde asked, clearly hurt. Why did he have to choose me? Why not someone else? Your father couldn't ask something of someone if he wasn't prepared to do the same himself, Ainz stated. What? Naruto snapped his attention to the lich. My father? But Gigi said he didn't know my parents, unless he was lying to me. Many secrets have been kept from you, child, though none have been done so lightly, Ainz explained. The Sandaime Hokage has kept your heritage from you as per instructions from your father for your own protection. I, however, am under no obligation. Can you tell about my parents, Ainz Gigi? The blonde asked hopefully. Did they love me? Kit, your parents loved you more than life itself, the fox stated, chuckling lightly as it recalled how excited its former container was when she learned that she was pregnant. I swear, Kushina nearly drove me insane with how often she would talk about you. She had insisted that you were a boy from the start. Minato had made the mistake to suggest otherwise, and well, it did not end well for him. May as well get comfortable, child. We have much to discuss to prepare you for the coming years, Ainz commented, catching the boy's attention. What do you mean? I am naming you the heir of Nazarick. Chapter 2. Naruto, age 10. It had been 2 years to the day that Naruto had met Ainz Ulgaun and Erza, otherwise known as the Kyuubi no Yoko, which had come to a bit of a shock to the poor boy when he had learned that the strongest and most feared of all the Biju was a female. Not that he had any problem with it, which the young boy had vehemently made clear when the vixen woman had confronted him about it. While absorbing Ainz's memories, Naruto had gained a healthy respect for strong women, especially after witnessing how some of the floor guardians dispatched their foes from Ainz's own perspective. Between his two tenants, Naruto had grown by leaps and bounds over the past 2 years. While the elder lich, whom the blonde had come to view as a grandfather figure, had taught the boy about the art of magic, runes, and enchantments, as well as lessons in politics, diplomacy, and subterfuge. When Naruto had inquired about the reasoning for the latter part of his lessons, Ainz had explained to him that not all battles could be won with physical confrontation, and that sometimes it was best to take a less violent and less bloody path to achieve his goals. Another thing the soon-to-be former Overlord had instructed the young blonde boy in is the teleportation spells. Mostly to help Naruto elude any mobs that would attempt to form up and trap the poor child. Aside from the teleportation spells, Ainz had also made sure the boy knew the basic forms of conjuration, allowing Naruto to have an unlimited supply of water and food, even if the selection of options left a lot to be desired for the time being. Though, that would be something that could be remedied later. Urza, on the other hand, had taught her young container the ins and outs of being a shinobi, working on the boy's chakra control, ninjutsu, and genjutsu, the latter of which she excelled at, due to her kitsune nature, which was perfect for the boy, as the young blonde had taken an interest in pulling pranks on the various citizens of the village that had done him wrong. Urza had seen this as an exceptional training exercise to test the boy's stealth, as well as creativity, citing that the same tactic won't always work, and that he would need to think outside the box to accomplish his goal. It had also helped considerably when the Hokage himself had learned of these pranks and had dubbed them as training exercises for the victims, citing that since they were a shinobi village, everyone that resided within its walls could be a potential victim to an enemy attack. A thought that a majority of the civilians never even considered to be a reality, assuming that only shinobi would be targeted in the event of any kind of attack. And the best part, the victims never once suspected they had fallen victim to the blonde boy they had scorned and condemned. Though the best part of Urza's tutelage was when she had instructed him how to use the shadow clone technique, an extremely versatile ability that sped up all of his training by a considerable amount thanks to a handy little detail about the technique that transferred memories back to the original once they were dispelled. The only limitations being that unless they were reinforced, they would dispel after a strong enough hit, and the fact that they couldn't transfer physical results back to the original, though muscle memory did, allowing the blonde to excel rapidly in his kunai and shuriken throwing skills. "It is time." The voice of the elder lich echoed in the back of his mind, causing the young blonde to flinch slightly. While he knew this day was coming, he was not looking forward to it. Not even a full year ago, Ainz had been upfront about his mortality, and had even meticulously counted down the days, preparing Naruto for what was to come. His return to the great tomb of Nazerick. Reluctantly, the blonde nodded and stood up from his bed. After the attack on him 2 years ago, the elder village leader had given the boy an apartment to himself. Having learned that Naruto had been living on the streets for the better part of the year, after the orphanage had kicked him out. It had been a bid to keep the boy safe and to have a place of his own in peace, though it was never to be. Ignorance still ran rampart through the civilians, and thus, they would vandalize the outside of his once nice apartment. At first, the blonde had attempted to keep it clean, though quickly learned that it was futile. Any time he would manage to remove the vandalism, the mobs would return to do even more damage to the property. So he had let it go. Extending his arm out towards a coat hanger isolated in the corner of the room, he summoned his coat to him. It was nothing too extravagant. Just a long, black trench coat with dark red trimmings, matching perfectly with his usual black shinobi pants, and burnt orange sleeveless shirt. With a heavy sigh, the blonde boy focused his magic into a single point and with a mere gesture, opened a portal into the deepest parts of the Forest of Death. Squaring his shoulders, Naruto moved through the portal, allowing it to close behind him. Within the blink of an eye, Naruto found himself before a large entrance of a structure that reminded him of an ancient temple of some kind from a forgotten time. Here goes nothing, Naruto thought as he made his way towards the entrance of the structure, mentally preparing himself for anything that could possibly happen. As he approached the entrance to the structure, he could see various forms of bones begin to form and reshape into humanoid skeletons, each wielding a variety of weapons. First line of defense for the great tomb of Nazerick, they keep weaker enemies at bay while acting as an alarm for the floor guardians. Ainz explained in the young blonde's mind. Just flare your magic, it will neutralize them without needlessly destroying them. Without acknowledging that he had heard the elder lich, Naruto pulsed his magic outwards, causing an arcane shock wave to wash over the skeletal army, causing their bones to rattle before they fell to the ground in pieces, but not destroyed. I suppose they know I am here then. He mused out loud to himself as he continued to make his way into the massive complex, feeling numerous high magical signatures zeroing in on his location. Knowing that the floor guardians were no doubt converging at a single point just ahead of him, the young blonde continued his trek through the massive hallway. To be honest, while he didn't show it on the outside, Naruto was extremely nervous about coming face to face with the floor guardians. From Ainz's memories, the blonde knew how strong each one was, which had left him with a sense of awe and a healthy respect for each of their fighting prowess. After a handful of minutes of walking, Naruto found himself standing in an intersection, with 13 individuals standing before him. Standing firm, the young blonde analyzed those that stood before him. Each of them, with the exception of 2, wore an expression of surprise to see a mere boy standing before them. At the front of the group was an elderly-looking man dressed in an elegant and graceful manner, as expected of the head butler of the great tomb of Nazerick. Sebastian? Naruto commented, much to the shock of the elderly-looking man, before the blonde scanned over the rest of the group. Yuri Alpha, Lupus Agena Beta, Shiza Delta, Narbro Gamma, Solution Epsilon, and Entoma Vasilisa Zeta. One by one, Naruto had named off each of the Pleiades, much to each individual's shock. Even the arachnid battle maid was not immune to showing clear surprise in her body language, despite her masked face being covered. Moving on from the battle maids of Nazerick, the young blonde focused his attention on the floor guardians themselves. Though, he was concerned with how the overseer and her rival would take the news they were about to be given. Albedo. The blonde boy addressed the overseer of the floor guardians, much to the surprise of the succubus, despite her hearing the boy call out the names of each of the Pleiades. Similar to before, Naruto turned his attention to the other floor guardians. Shelter Bloodfallen, Demiurge, Cocytus, Ora Bella Fiora, and Mare Bello Fiori. Only missing Victim and Gargantua. Who are you? Sebas managed to choke out, alarm in his piercing eyes. Forgive me for having you at a disadvantage, the blonde boy stated before giving a slight bow of respect towards the servants of Nazerick. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and I must say, it is good to see you all again and for the first time. What do you mean, to see us all again if this is the first time you have met us? Demiurge inquired, a look of suspicion evident on his face. Perhaps it would be best explained by someone else, Naruto stated, before bringing his hands together and focusing his magic outwards. As he did so, his body gained a purplish aura around it before a stream of magic pooled out into a single point. Within seconds a very familiar figure was standing before the Nazerick denizens. Ainz-sama! They called out in joy upon seeing the elder lich reappear before them. It is good to see you have returned, Ainz-sama, Sebas stated as he knelt before the lich. It is good to be back, Ainz mused as he took in the sight of his loyal followers, knowing this would be the last time he would see them, for as short as it may be. Ainz-sama? The head butler questioned, looking uncertain. Wordlessly, Ainz opened a portal to his personal pocket dimension and pulled out his fabled staff of Ainz old gown. An intricate golden staff, entwined by 7 serpents, each with a different colored jewel being held in their mouths. Silently, the elder lich admired the staff before turning to address his loyal servants one last time. 10 years ago, I departed to investigate a surge of power, the Overlord began, and I found the source. The village Nazerick resides within was under siege by a being of extraordinary power. The villagers' leader, Minato Namikaze, also known as the Hokage, was battling it. However, in order for a mortal to defeat a being of such power, he had to call upon a god to subdue the beast, at the cost of his own life. While the elder lich explained the circumstances, Naruto took the time to watch the various reactions of the tomb's denizens. Some, like Demiurge, Sebas, and even Yuri had quickly connected the dots, casting a curious glance at the blonde boy. In the Hokage's final act to defend his home, he sealed the powerful beast into his own son with the aid of the god he had summoned, a being known as the Shinigami in this world. He continued, as such, I too fell victim to be sealed within the boy. Hearing this, all eyes turned to Naruto, prompting the blonde to flinch slightly, despite himself. especially with the way both Xiaotir and Albedo were glaring at the boy. Let it be known now that my heir is not to be blamed for what had happened, Ainz stated with finality in his voice, having seen the way the two floor guardians were looking at his current vessel. However, his final words resonated among those gathered. Ainz-sama, what do you mean by your heir? Yuri inquired, as her eyes drifted from Naruto back to Ainz's form, earning a tired sigh from the elder lich. My time is growing short for this world, he stated as he turned towards Naruto before grasping his staff one final time before handing it over to the boy, whom gingerly took it. As such, I have named young Naruto Uzumaki as my heir. For the last few years, I have been instructing him to take my place, and above all, to take care of all of you. As soon as the staff left his hands, his skeletal body began to slowly crumble away, much to the shock of all those present. Casually, he watched as the bone fragments from his hands began to fall away before he turned towards the tomb's denizens. It appears my time is coming to an end, Ainz casually stated before once again turning to his vessel as more of his skeletal body began to dissipate. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I have poured all of my knowledge into you. Now, it is up to you to care for the great tomb of Nazerick, and above all, those who are precious to me. I promise, Ainz GG. Naruto sniffled as tears streamed down his cheeks. While the elder lich had done all he could to prepare the boy for this inevitable day, it still didn't lessen the pain of losing someone the boy had held dear. I won't let you down. I know you won't, and I know you will do me proud. The dissolving skeletal figure chuckled lightly, turning his attention on last time to the floor guardians and Pleiades that were gathered. It has been an honor to have been with you all. I now ask that you support young Naruto and help him grow into the mantle that I have placed upon him. It will be done, Ainz-sama, Seabass stated, holding back his own tears. With one last nod in acknowledgement, Ainz's body completely dissolved into the air as the magic used to sustain his form returned to Naruto's body, leaving behind all to grieve his passing. For his part, Seabass remained stoic, while both Aura and Mare wept openly at the lich's passing. Both Abeldo and Xiaotir had departed in a fit of grief with a mix of rage swirling within each of them. After a few minutes had passed, Seabass approached the newly appointed Overlord and knelt before him, prompting the rest to follow suit to carry out the last request given to them by Ainz. One by one, each of the floor guardians and Pleiades knelt before the blonde boy, each showing their solidarity towards the new Overlord. As per Ainz-sama's last request, we shall do our best to support you, Naruto-sama, Seabass stated. Thank you, Seabass-san. Naruto smiled, before turning to address the rest. But I would like the chance to earn all of your trust and loyalty. I've never been one to accept anything to be handed to me. As such, I would like to earn the title Ainz GG had bestowed upon me. That is a very admirable trait, Naruto-sama, Yuri commented with a small smile, appreciating the boy's resolve to earn his status rather than just accepting it. A clear sign that Ainz had chosen well. What of Albedo and Xiaotir? Demiurge inquired. Both are extremely hurt with Ainz-sama's passing, Seabass pointed out. No doubt, blaming you, Naruto-sama, Yuri added, prompting the blonde to nod in understanding. I will go and talk with them individually, Naruto stated, much to the surprise of those still present. But what if they? Aura attempted to ask. Then I will allow them to take out their anger until they are calm enough to talk, the blonde interrupted. I promised Ainz GG I would look out for all of you, and that is what I intend to do. Without waiting for a reply, Naruto turned and teleported on the spot towards the closest room of the two grieving floor guardians, which happened to be Albedo. From Ainz's memories, Naruto knew quite well of the succubus's temper, as well as her battle prowess. There was a reason she was the overseer of the floor guardians. Meanwhile, the remaining floor guardians and Pleiades stared at the now empty spot the boy had just occupied. Some musing thoughtfully at the boy's actions, while others looked concerned. None more so than the two dark elf twins. Do you think Naruto-sama will be alright? Mare inquired out loud, concern laced in his voice. I believe Naruto-sama will be fine. Demiurge spoke up with a slight chuckle. I can see that the boy has the potential to match Ainz-sama, if not surpass him. The years to come shall prove interesting. Indeed, Seabass stated with a thoughtful grunt. For now, let us return to our duties and await for Naruto-sama's orders. Hi! Each acknowledged before separating to their own designated areas, leaving the head butler to himself. So this is what you meant that night, 10 years ago. He mused, recalling his final communication with the elder lich. You knew there was no escape but didn't want us to worry. Still, you faced it head on, even preparing the young boy to take your mantle. With Naruto. In a flash, the young blonde appeared at a large, purple-colored door. Taking a moment, he looked to the staff that was still within his hands before depositing it in the pocket dimension, having a feeling that if he kept it with him, it would only serve as a greater reminder of the elder lich's passing. Even more so than himself. Knowing that it would be futile to knock and request entry, the blonde sighed and reluctantly opened the door and stepped in, preparing himself to be met with the wrath of an angry succubus. The first thing Naruto noticed was the mess the room was in currently. Banners had been torn down from the walls and ripped to shreds, whilst various furniture pieces had been overturned, and some even broken beyond normal means of repair. Though what concerned the blonde the most was seeing a pile of freshly torn in half plushies and body pillows of Ainz himself. Maybe I should have spoken with Shelter first. He silently mused, though didn't have any further time to ponder, as he caught a pair of glowing yellow eyes staring at him from the corner of the room. What are you doing here? Albedo growled out, glaring at the blonde that had intruded upon her sanctum. I was concerned about you, Naruto replied, not moving from his position. As soon as those words left his mouth, Albedo exploded from her corner and tackled the young blonde with so much force that the two collided with the wall on the other side of the massive room, earning a small grunt from the young blonde, leaving Naruto halfway buried into it. You! She seethed. You took him away from me. Naruto said nothing, as he allowed the succubus to vent her anger out as she pounded on his chest with closed fists. Though the power that should have been there was absent. Why? She cried out as she brought her balled fists down onto his chest. Why did he have to go? Wordlessly, Naruto wrapped his arms around her crying form to offer what comfort he could to the grieving succubus. Ainz used to tell me stories of his time with all of you. He spoke softly, catching the sobbing woman's attention as he gently rubbed her upper back in a comforting manner. But you know, he spoke the most about you and Shelter. Hearing this, the trembling succubus took the chance to gaze up at the young boy's cerulean blue eyes, that seemed to glow in the shadows, due to the magic coursing through his body. Peering into his blue eyes, Albedo could only see kindness, admiration, and concern. There was also a touch of restrained power as well, lingering behind those blue pools, making the succubus realize that the boy had allowed her to beat him into the wall. A revelation that shook her to her core. She began. You know, he may not have been able to convey it. Naruto smiled. But I could tell that he loved you both dearly. He loved me? Albedo stammered out, looking to the blonde for confirmation, in which Naruto could only smile and nod. I'll be honest with you, Albedo-chan. Naruto began, as he allowed himself to slide down the wall to get into a more comfortable position. When I had finally learned that Ainz was separated from all of you, I almost tore off the seal from their prison myself. Even though it would have cost me my own life. Why? Albedo inquired, looking to the blonde boy in confusion, wondering why someone so young would sacrifice their life in such a way. Because of the event that happened 10 years ago, I am not well liked within the village. The blonde boy began, with a somber tone that did not match his age. For the past 5 years, I have been hunted down, beaten, and tortured by the villagers. To be honest, I don't really have many that would miss me if I were gone. Not like Ainz had all of you, so if my life would reunite him with all of you, I felt it would have been worth it. For her part, Albedo could only gawk at the blonde. To learn that not only had the boy, the heir chosen by Ainz himself, had offered to sacrifice his own life to free the elder lich from his prison, but to also learn that he had suffered greatly at the hands of the villagers of his own home village. But Ainz wouldn't let me. Nor my other tenant. Naruto continued, with a slight chuckle as his remaining tenant was grumbling in the back of his mind about the boy's reckless offer. As much as he wanted to return to you all, he knew that if I broke the seal without the key, it would not only kill me, but also take him and my other tenant along with me. Since the Shinigami designed the seal to link all of our souls together. So instead of working on a way to safely break the seal, Ainz GG focused on training me instead. To carry forth his will, and above all, to take care of all of you. Why do you call Ainz-sama GG? As much as it would hurt the old man to admit it out loud, I saw Ainz GG more as my grandfather figure than old man Hokage himself. The blonde replied with a caring smile, turning his gaze towards her. Know this, I am not, nor will I ever try to take Ainz GG's place, no one can. As I told the others, I will earn all of your trust and loyalty. Albedo moved to speak, only to be shushed by the blonde overlord, whom had now caressed her head to lay upon his shoulder, as he combed his fingers through her hair in a comforting manner, eliciting a sigh of contentment from the succubus. After a few minutes had passed, Naruto had noticed that Albedo's breathing had become more soft and relaxed, indicating that she had fallen asleep in his arms. With a soft smile, he gently lifted her sleeping form with ease, despite his current small frame. Summoning forth a seal-less shadow clone to clear off her bed, allowing him to lay her down upon it so that she could rest. That went well. Naruto mused to himself, as he dismissed his clone. I hope the talk with Shouta will go as smoothly. If only he knew how wrong he would be. Chapter 3. Naruto, age 13. Naruto-sama. A soft, yet authoritative voice sounded from behind the door to his large bedroom. It's time to wake up. Unknown to the maid that had just delivered his wake-up call for the morning, the teenage overlord had already been awake for the past hour. Why was he still in bed then? Because of a very familiar weight lying on his chest in the form of one Arabella Fiora. The young dark elf girl had taken to crawling into his bed a little over 2.5 years ago, feigning having a nightmare. Something the young blonde had seen through, but had kept quiet about it. He had surmised that the young dark elf was drawn to his warm empathy, something Ainz regrettably was unable to offer. This caused Naruto to frown slightly at the thought. The elder lich had held much love for those around him, though was never able to convey it in a proper manner. The young overlord couldn't think of a worse kind of hell. Good morning, Naruto-sama, spoke the groggy form of the young dark elf, as she sat up, rubbing her eye to get the sleep out of it. Her blonde hair having grown out slightly over the past 3 years, reaching her shoulders, giving the tomboy a slightly more feminine appearance. Her blouse hanging loosely off her right shoulder, allowing the blonde teen to get a good eyeful of her smooth and delicate skin. It didn't help matters when he had noticed a lack of undergarments a woman would normally wear, causing the poor boy to blush slightly. You did it again, Aura-chan. The young overlord lightly chastised, prompting the dark elf woman to rub the back of her head in embarrassment. Well, there was this giant monster. She began to spin an elaborate tale of some fearsome creature chasing after her. Aura-chan, you battle and tame larger beasts more ferocious than anything you could dream up. Naruto pointed out. What's the real reason you keep climbing into bed with me? Well, she began, blushing in embarrassment. You have the same powerful aura as Ainz-sama did, but you're also warm, and have a comforting presence when you walk in the room. Something Ainz-sama never had. His aura was always cold and foreboding. So I was correct. Naruto frowned slightly. My power reminds her of Ainz GG, but because I still have my humanity, she feels comforted when I am near. Makes sense. You do know every time you do this, the others get jealous, right? Naruto inquired with a small sigh, not looking forward to handling the explosive reactions from both Albedo and Shouta when the two would no doubt hear that Aura had once again climbed into his bed in the middle of the night. Despite himself, the blonde overlord couldn't help but chuckle at his luck. Though whether it was good or bad luck was still up for debate. Aura only giggled in response before leaning over and giving a small peck on the blonde's cheek before slipping off the bed and hurrying out of the room, leaving the blonde alone with his thoughts and a particular morning problem that most boys his age suffered from. With a heavy sigh, Naruto kicked the sheets off of him and got up to prepare to go about his day. Ever since that day 3 years ago, the newly appointed overlord had resided within the great tomb, taking over the room that had once belonged to his predecessor and grandfather figure. Using the apartment that the Hokage had given him as a decoy for any wannabe heroes looking to avenge the Yondaime. Fools, Naruto thought. I wonder how they will react when they learn the truth, and realize they've been targeting their beloved hero's own son. Considering how arrogant they are, they will no doubt try and deny it. A melodious voice echoed through his mind. Even if the proof is right before their eyes. Morning, Urza-chan. The blonde greeted his tenant as he began his morning routine. The elf girl was in here again, wasn't she? The Kitsune woman accused with a chuckle, though she already knew the answer. Ignoring his tenant's rhetorical question, Naruto proceeded with his morning light workout and stretches before entering his private bathroom to clean up before breakfast was served. Knowing that Pastonia would give him an earful if he showed up without being properly washed up. He had made the mistake once shortly after he moved into the tomb, and the homunculus woman had laid into him something fierce. Finishing up his business, the blonde overlord quickly dressed in his usual attire before departing his bedroom. As he made his way down the large corridor that led to the dining area, he was greeted by the sight of a penguin with blonde hair curled at either side of his head, barking orders at a line of maids, each of which were sporting a blush on their cheeks as the young teen approached them. Ah, good morning, Naruto-sama, the penguin exclaimed, prompting the maids to give their own greetings. Good morning, Eclair. Naruto returned the greeting. Keep the tomb clean as usual, I see. Absolutely, Naruto-sama, Eclair proudly declared. No one can clean better than me. You can even lick the toilet bowl after I have cleaned it. Yeah, I'll just take your word for it, the blonde replied, not at all finding the idea of licking a toilet bowl appealing in the slightest. Keep up the good work. That I will. Chuckling to himself at the assistant butler's enthusiasm, the blonde teen continued on his way, arriving at his destination after a few more minutes of walking through the massive complex. Upon entering the dining room, the aroma of tantalizing food assaulted his nostrils. Many of the floor guardians having already gathered for their morning meal. As usual, Pastonia-chan has gone all out for breakfast, he commented to himself, earning a mental nod of agreement from Urza. Ah, good morning, Naruto-sama, woof, the dog-headed woman greeted. Morning, Pastonia-chan. The blonde overlord greeted the head maid. You've really outdone yourself this time. Your compliment is most appreciated, Naruto-sama. Woof. Nodding to the head maid, Naruto proceeded to his place at the dining table at the very end, giving each of the floor guardians a morning greeting as he passed them. During the last 3 years, the young blonde had not only learned a lot about them as individuals, but also from them as well. First and foremost, Demiurge had instructed the young overlord in additional forms of strategies, as well as buffing and summoning arts magic. Not to mention an in-depth course of torture and interrogation when the archdevil had learned of the young blonde's plan to become a shinobi for the village the Great Tomb resided in, citing that such skills would be a great benefit for his chosen profession. Cocytus had trained the boy with every weapon that was stored within the tomb's armory to such an extent that any of the weapons masters within the village, or even the elemental nations, would be green with envy. While Naruto still had a ways to go to fully master the art of weapons, he could no doubt give even the best a run for their money. Sebastian, the head butler of Nazerick, had elevated his knowledge in close-quartered combat, utilizing a training regiment that would even make the renowned Might Guy, the green beast of Konoha, balk, much to the young overlord's dismay, though the benefit had greatly outweighed the pain and suffering he had to endure during his training. Shizu Delta had helped in refining his skill with projectiles and other range-based weaponry, to the point that the young blonde had to purposely try to miss his intended targets. Mayor Bellofiori, the younger twin brother of Aura, had helped in his understanding and practice of the druid arts. From being able to move the earth and vegetation to his will, to summoning forth cataclysmic abilities, such as volcanoes and other such destructive forces. Albedo, the sensual succubus, had instructed him on the importance of a good defense, as well as management and communication skills. When she wasn't trying to smother him in her bountiful chest, that is. After his heart-to-heart talk with her, it seemed as if the succubus had developed an obsession with him, similar to how she felt towards Ainz. plushies and body pillows as well, making the blonde overlord curious if she handcrafted them all herself, or if she had somehow found a place to mass order them from. Shelter Bloodfallen, Nazerick's resident true vampire, had taken to teaching him further in various magic arts and other forms of melee combat. After she had thoroughly trounced him upon his attempt to sit down and talk with her like he had with Albedo, though he would never tell her that he had allowed her to dominate their fight. Not to say he wasn't hurting well after the fact from the beating he had received, but due to his tenacity and determination, he had managed to win her over. At least enough to give him a chance. Though now, the young overlord was beginning to think he had done a bit too well of a job in winning her over, as her rivalry with Albedo had been reignited all over again. Next was none other than Ora Bellafiora, his now self-proclaimed bed partner, as weird as that sounded. The young dark elf, at least by elf standards, had tutored him about the ins and outs of various beasts that she had battled, caught, and tamed from the forest of death. How they thought, how they moved, and so forth. "You little dark elf hussy!" a voice shrieked from across the room, alerting the current occupants of the arrival of a now enraged succubus, pointing an accusing finger towards Ora. "How dare you soil Naruto-sama's bed with your presence again?" And the unofficial third member of the rivalry to be his head wife, as Albedo had once put it. "You're just jealous that Naruto-sama won't invite you into his bed." The young dark elf shot back at the succubus in a smug manner, which had only served to infuriate Albedo even further. Technically, she invited herself. Naruto mentally corrected the beast master as he attempted to focus on his breakfast rather than the spectacle that was unfolding between the soon-to-be three women, as he spied Shelter entering the room. "If Naruto-sama is going to invite anyone into his bed, it shall be I," the vampiress stated with a smirk as she approached her two rivals. "You will need to stop using padding before he even considers inviting you into bed," Ora replied cheekily to the vampire, prompting Shelter to scowl at the young dark elf, whom of course was snickering at the crimson-eyed woman's embarrassment. You have no room to talk," Shelter shot back, blushing furiously. "You've got nothing but a boy chest." "Maybe," Ora shrugged in an uncaring manner. "But since I am only 76 years old, so I can still develop, whereas you are permanently stuck with those bug bites." "Perhaps I shall join Naruto-sama in bed tonight," Albedo declared as she glared at the two in front of her. "I shall show him the pleasures and curves of a real woman." "You, the pure maiden, are going to show Naruto-sama the pleasures of a woman?" Shelter inquired with an incredulous look, while poking fun at the succubus' lack of hands-on experience. "Do you even know which hole to put it in?" "She'll probably put it in the wrong hole." Ora giggled, missing the smirk on the succubus's lips. "There's no such thing as the wrong hole, when it's with someone you love," she commented with a smirk of her own, prompting both petite girls to come to an abrupt silence, unsure as to how to respond. Meanwhile, Naruto nearly choked on his food upon hearing the succubus's retort, a healthy blush forming along his cheeks. "Ah, Naruto-sama," Demiurge greeted as he approached the young blonde, completely unfazed by the argument of the three women. "I see things are lively this morning. I take it Ora had accompanied you in bed once again." "Don't say it like that," the blonde snapped with a small glare, causing the archdevil to chuckle slightly at the young overlord's plight. "I must say, it is nice to see both Albedo and Shelter back to their normal selves," Demiurge commented, though surprising to see Ora engaging in their rivalry as well. "Things truly are interesting with you around, Naruto-sama." At this, Naruto softened his glare a little before turning his attention back to the three women still arguing with one another, a soft smile forming on his lips, nodding in agreement. "I am glad to see both Albedo-chan and Shelter-chan move past their grief after Ainz Gigi passed on." "So, what are your plans for today, Naruto-sama?" Demiurge asked, turning his attention to the blonde before him. "Aside from wasting half my day in the academy," the blonde scoffed, wishing that he didn't have to suffer sitting through the academy just to become a shinobi for the village. "I plan to visit some this afternoon." "Ah, the Inuzuka clan matriarch, if I recall." "Yes, from Ainz's memories, I know that she had attempted to adopt me after that incident on the night of my birth," Naruto stated. "I also know that she had her clansmen look out for me as much as they could before I came here." Do you plan to bring her here? No. The blonde shook his head in a negative gesture, knowing that it was too early to start inviting random people into the tomb. However, speaking of Nazerick, I need to schedule a meeting with the Fire Daimyo at some point in the next few weeks. About your plan to have Nazerick registered as a clan within the village? Demiurge inquired. It will give us more political support within the village, the young overlord explained. As both yourself and Ainz GG had taught me, politics can be a powerful weapon when used properly. And you were a wonderful student, the archdevil complimented. So I take it if you are ready to plan a meeting with the Fire Daimyo, you have a plan in place? Yes. The blonde nodded. Sebastian will act as the current clan head when we meet with the Fire Daimyo, if that is alright with you. It will be an honor, Naruto-sama. Sebas replied from his position just to the left of where Naruto sat. So, you plan to exclude the village leader from this meeting? Naruto merely nodded in response. As much as he trusted the old man, he knew the Hokage would ask too many questions as to how Sebas knew of himself, and the reasoning behind naming him the heir of a clan seemingly out of the blue. No, it would be best to simply have it approved by the Fire Daimyo himself. Though he knew he would have to come up with something to tell the old man to allay his concerns. We'll discuss this later this evening, the blonde overlord stated as he pushed himself up from the table, having finished his breakfast. As for now, I need to get to the academy. Don't want to miss any of Irika's boring lectures. Bidding everyone farewell, Naruto opened the portal that would take him to his assigned apartment, so that he could begin his day as just a civilian teen within the village. Hokage's office, some time later. Hiruzen let out a tired sigh as he overlooked the growing stack of papers that were beginning to pile on his desk. Most of which were all useless proposals made by various members of the civilian council. Still, he had to read over every single one of them before he approved, or most likely, rejected the proposals. Never know when the collective group of idiots would actually come up with a good idea that didn't involve them trying to line their pockets for their own gain. Though, as he had expected, almost a quarter of the proposals were in regards to Naruto, and having said boy removed from the academy under false concerns over the safety of the other students. While others questioned the workings of the seal and moved to have the boy removed from the village entirely, in case the seal failed. With a low growl, the elder village leader had taken note of the names on the proposals in question and dispatched a small team of A and BU to bring them in for some one-on-one sessions with Ibiki. Looks like I am going to need to fill some more seats on the council again, he thought to himself. Speaking of Naruto-kun, I wonder how he is doing. It's been a while since I had last sat and spoke with him. With the blonde in mind, Hiruzen pulled out a spherical object that was stowed away in the lower drawer of his desk and placed it on the top. Channeling his chakra into it, he awaited for the image to clear. Once it did, the elder man was greeted with the sight of the young blonde teen looking extremely bored, no doubt due to Irika's lectures of the village's rich history, causing the Hokage to chuckle slightly. As he checked in on his surrogate grandson, Hiruzen noted key changes in the boy. First and foremost is his attire. Gone was the orange jumpsuit he had once loved as a child, replaced now with an entirely new outfit. The young teen's new outfit consisted of a pair of black A&BU pants with multiple pockets, and a dark blue mesh sleeveless shirt, which was usually covered by the dark purple robe-like coat with red trimmings that the young blonde wore almost all the time. To finish the ensemble was a simple pair of black combat boots, a rare piece of attire for aspiring shinobi due to how heavy they were. Though what was peculiar to the elderly man was the 7 rings the boy now wore on each of his fingers. 4 on his right hand, 3 of which were blue while the one located on his ring finger was red. On his left hand was 3, 2 of which were blue, while the one located on his middle finger was a greenish color. I wonder where he got those from, Hiruzen mused with a curious expression. Though his expression slowly turned to a frown, noting that such luxurious items would no doubt draw unwanted attention to the boy. And no doubt with the young man's status, accusations of him stealing the items in question were bound to pop up. Feeling that he had intruded upon his surrogate grandson's privacy enough, the elderly man removed his chakra from the sphere and returned it back to the drawer it was stored in. Still, I should set aside some time to visit the boy in person. He mused out loud as he settled into his ongoing fight with the ever-growing paperwork that was the bane of every Kage's existence. Perhaps I can get him to open up about his change in appearance. Perhaps this afternoon, he stated before looking up from his desk, only to see that the stacks of paper had seemingly doubled, causing the elderly man to do a double take. Or not. Later that afternoon, the blonde overlord let out a small sigh as he made his way down the village streets. A little frustrated that he had been held after class due to Mizuki accusing him of cheating, prompting Irika to hold him after class to investigate his partner's claim, which of course after nearly 2 hours of deliberating, Irika could find no proof of any cheating whatsoever. Meanwhile, the silver-haired instructor had quickly departed the academy grounds. No doubt to try and set up an ambush for me again at my supposed apartment. Naruto chuckled to himself, earning an amused chuckle from Urza. It was no secret that the silver-haired Chunin absolutely despised the young overlord, no doubt due to his tenant. Not that it bothered him any. In the past 3 years, he had acquired a family of sorts that cared for him, and in the cases of a few, absolutely loved him, sometimes bordering on being obsessed with him. So what did he care if the villagers hated him for something beyond his control? He now had the family he had always desired when he was younger. Too bad those fools are only wasting their time waiting for you, Urza put in with a slight snicker as she projected an image of Mizuki and a group of nameless individuals all gathering in an empty and run-down apartment. Wonder if Intoma-chan would allow me to use one of her insects to keep watch one of these times? He mused, knowing full well that this wouldn't be the last time a group of fools tried to set up an ambush at his registered apartment. Knowing how literally all the girls in the tomb feel about you, the Kitsune woman teased. She would no doubt jump at the chance to move ahead in the ranks, so to speak. Yeah, I know. The blonde lamented with a sigh. While the main competitors were Albedo, Shelter, and Aura, nearly all of the female inhabitants of Nazerick were drawn to him. He had surmised it had something to do with the fact that not only did he have Ainz's powerful aura, but he still had his humanity, allowing him to express affection more openly. Speaking of which, I wonder how all of them will react when your plan to establish Nazerick as an official clan within the village comes to fruition. Urza commented with a mischievous grin. After all, you will be the only official male of the clan. Naruto couldn't help but groan at what his tenant was referring to. No doubt, when he would officially be registered as the heir of Nazerick within the village's database, he would automatically be eligible for the Clan Restoration Act. Something that would no doubt infuriate various members of the Civilian Council, as well as the 3 old fools on the Elder Council. Fortunately, with the way he had it all planned, the governing body of the village would have no say in the matter, as he fully expected the Fire Daimyo himself to approve it once he bared witness to the riches and power Nazerick had to offer. A small price to pay for more political power. However, his musing was cut short as he heard a small commotion in the alleyway just ahead of him. "Get yours hands off me, bastard!" A voice slurred, followed by the sound of multiple grunts. Clear indications of someone being struck. Quickly rounding the corner, the young overlord was greeted with the sight of a lone woman that was dressed in a fitted mesh bodysuit that ran from her neck to her thighs, covered by a tan trench coat and a dark orange skirt, surrounded by 3 men, clearly of Chunin rank. "Now don't be like that, Anko-chan." One of them snickered as he approached her, forcing her to stumble backwards on unsteady legs. "We just want to have a little fun is all." "You should feel privileged that we even thought you worth our time, snake whore." Another sneered. "Now how about you play nice?" the final man commented. "Hell, you may even enjoy this." "Like hell I will." The woman now identified as Anko bit back, forcing herself forward and delivering a crushing blow to the first man's face, instantly breaking his nose. Though due to her unbalanced state, she found herself falling to the ground. "Fucking bitch!" The man cursed as blood poured from his shattered nose, before turning and delivering a strong kick to her midsection, causing her to cry out in pain as she was forced to roll away from her assailants, coming to a stop just in front of the young blonde. "Who the hell are you?" one of the men demanded as he took notice of the new arrival. "I don't give my name to dead men," Naruto retorted, as his left eye erupted with a red flame of power. "Shit, It's just the QB brat. Another stated, recognizing the blonde teen. Just kill him, then we can have our fun with the snake bitch. Grasp heart. Naruto stated in a cold tone as he extended his right arm towards the one that had just spoke, and made a gripping motion. As he did so, a ghost-like appearance of a human heart could be seen in his hand before it exploded in his grip, causing the man he had targeted to cry out in pain before crumbling to the floor. The remaining two were not given a chance to process what had just happened as Naruto disappeared from his spot, and within the blink of an eye was in front of his second victim as he cocked his fist back and delivered a punch so devastating, it caused the poor man's head to explode in a shower of blood, bone, and brain matter. Quickly repeating the same process with the remaining man, before turning his attention back to the prone woman whom was still laying on the ground. Slowly making his over to her, he could see her beginning to slip in and out of consciousness. Knowing he couldn't in good conscience leave her here, he moved to pick her up, only for her to weakly fight back against his touch, though she had no strength left as whatever she was inebriated with had begun to take full effect on her. With little effort, he gently secured his hands, and picked her up in a bridal position. The last thing Anko saw before darkness finally claimed her was a pair of blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Ah, bringing women home already, Naruto-kun? Such a stud you are. Urza teased. Not now, the blonde retorted as he rolled his eyes at the kitsune woman's antics before opening a portal to take him, and the now unconscious Anko back to Nazerick. Damn, going to have to catch some sen another time. That's it for part 1. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.